भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चादेशतारिणे
I think we've got something going here. Jyoti Mataji will now share the slides.
Prabhuji, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, this is perfect.
Yeah, we can see everything. Thank you.
Mataji, just tell me when to change the screen, yes?
I will, yeah, after every screen, I will tell
Okay,
you. Thank you
okay.
very much. Thank you for this.
Yeah.
You saved the day again, Jyoti Mataji. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yes, as we've all been doing for the past few days, run up to the Gaura Purnima, speaking from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, Jyoti Mataji, can you go back to the previous screen, please? So today we are going to speak on grihastha guidelines from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, interestingly, one could ask, why are we talking about, grihastha guidelines? Why are we focusing on grihasthas? Because the whole idea is we're talking about spirituality, realizations. So why focus on grihasthas? And I thought, let's first answer that question and then move on to what the guidelines are. So yes, Jyoti Mataji, the next slide, please. So here, we're looking at two verses from the CC. Unfortunately, because the slides are being, managed by Jyoti Mataji, so I have not done like, one will come first and the second. So you'll have to bear with me. So in the CC Madhya Leela 13.18, this is a very beautiful verse. I'm sure a lot of you must have heard this verse a number of times, right? Okay, we've got Jyoti Mataji on the screen. So I'll just open my, So the verse is, Naham vipro na chara narapatir, napi vaishyo na shudro, naham varni na cha grihapatir, no vanashto yatirva, kintu prodhyam nikhila paramananda purnam pratyayir, gopir bhartur padakamalyor, das anudas. So the translation is that I am not a Brahmana, I am not a Kshatriya, I am not a Vaishya or a Shudra, nor am I a Brahmachari, a householder, a Vanaprasth or a sannyasi. I identify myself only as the servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. He is like an ocean of nectar, and he is the cause of universal transcendental bliss. He is always existing with brilliance. So the whole point over here is to first of all understand that here this verse is saying, I'm neither a Brahmana, nor a sannyasi, nor am I a brahmachari, nor am I a householder. So the whole point is that we should not be identifying ourselves with the body. We've spoken a lot about this on this forum, where we understand that I'm not this body, I am this soul. However, this soul is engaged in this body right now. So yes, although I know I am this soul, but because I am in this body, and right now, currently, most of us on this forum are in the body of a grihastha. We are householders. So then, with this body, what are my duties and responsibilities? What should I be doing in order to realize myself? And then this other verse, which is again very, very important, from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 8.67. This verse was spoken by Ramananda Rai during his conversations with Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu was asking him questions. And whatever Ramananda Rai replied, he said, tell me more. He was asking questions about pure devotional service. And here, what I want to focus on is that everything is important, but the last statement where he says, yes, this is the one. He says, surrendering themselves fully with body, words, and mind, they can live in any ashram or social status. Indeed, you are conquered by such persons, although you are always unconquerable. So, we are looking at and we are understanding 2 points from here. One is that yes, we identify ourselves as the soul, but right now we are in this body. Most of us are householders. What is the role as a householder? And second point is, many a times people have this feeling that spiritual knowledge, spiritual realization is limited for brahmacharis or sannyasis or people of the renounced order. But here, Ramananda Rai makes it very clear that whoever it is, in whichever varna or ashram he is, if one is able to surrender oneself fully, then he can conquer the Lord, who normally is always unconquerable. And that is why we are trying to understand this topic about grihasthas. Next slide, please, Jyoti Mataji. Now, before we move on, what are the guidelines? Very important to understand the term grihastha, and then there is a term grihamedi. Very important to understand what are these two terms. What does it mean by grihastha? And what does it mean mainly by grihastha ashram? Right? So here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Verse 2, it says that those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society, O Emperor. Such people are called grihamedi because they are always focusing on their own sense gratification. However, at the same time, Srila Prabhupada is explaining what grihastha ashram means. Srila Prabhupada says here that when one gets married, one is entering the grihastha ashram. Ashram means something that is in connection with God. Right? May I just take a moment here to check that I'm sure everybody knows what are the 4 ashrams in the human society? Would anybody like to unmute yourself and answer? What are the 4 different ashrams?
Brahmachari ashram,
Yes.
Grhastha ashram, Banprastha,
Yeah.
then sannyas.
Correct. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So all of these, brahmachari ashram, vanaprastha ashram, sannyas ashram, the common word is ashram, because in all these phases of one's life, the main thing is to be connected with God. The difference between a grihastha and a grihamedi is that externally they both may look similar, that they're living with their family, they're married, they have children, friends, they go to work, they have property. However, a grihastha keeps Krishna in the center. And the goal of his life is to cultivate Krishna consciousness. Whereas a grihamedi is focused only on his sense gratification. He's focused on trying to look after the happiness of his family, look after his children, but in a selfish way without keeping Krishna in the center. So externally, they both may look similar, but there is a huge difference. So first we need to understand what a grihastha is, who is a grihastha, who is in a grihastha ashram. Once that is clear, then we will move on to what should we be doing, right? Next slide, please, Jyoti Mataji. Hare Krishna. Next slide. Thank you. So we are taking examples from Chaitanya Charitamrita and looking at how a grihastha should behave. Mahaprabhu has given various instructions to his householder devotees. Another thing which is very, very important to see is that, like I said earlier, a lot of times people think that spiritual path and spiritual journey is meant for people in the renounced order. However, if you notice, in Mahaprabhu's Leela also, during Mahaprabhu's pastimes, majority of his associates were householders. And Srila Prabhupada, in one of his lectures, he was talking about the 12 Mahajans. We'll not go into the detail of all of these Mahajans. But out of these 12 Mahajans, 7 are householders. Right? I'm sure a lot of you have read about the 12 Mahajans. One of them is Shiva. He's one of the Mahajans. The other is Bali Maharaj, again a householder. So there are so many examples. 7 of them are householders. So how Mahaprabhu, through instructions to the householders, is giving instructions to all of us how we should be behaving, right? So first thing, we will look at this story of the Kurma Brahmin. Now this story has been told by me on this forum itself. I'm not sure if the other facilitators may have had the opportunity to share the story, but I remember that I did share the story some time back. So again, we won't go into the full detail of the story, but this was during Mahaprabhu's travels to the south of India. He met this Brahmin when he was traveling. The Brahmin very, very sincerely, lovingly, with a lot of dedication, served Mahaprabhu. And when it was time for Mahaprabhu to leave, the Brahmin fell at his feet and said, "Please take me with you. I do not want to get entangled again in this materialistic way of life. I want to break free from this. I want to come with you. I want to serve you. Please take me with you." As you can see in this picture, this is where the Kurma Brahmin is praying. And at this time, Mahaprabhu gives a very, very important instruction. Right? He says, Kabuna badipe tomara vishya taranga, punarapi aithani pabe mora sanga. The translation is, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further advised the Brahmana Kurma, if you follow this instruction, your materialistic life at home will not obstruct your spiritual advancement. Indeed, if you follow these regulative principles, we will again meet here, or rather, you will never lose my company. Now, this is such a wonderful instruction where Mahaprabhu is saying, you will never lose my company. What is the instruction that he is giving to the Kurma Brahmin? He gives the instructions that you don't need to leave. You just stay in your house. You fulfill your responsibilities and your duties. However, don't get attached to this materialistic way of life. Although, so he's telling us through the instructions to the Kurma Brahmin, Mahaprabhu is instructing all of us that although we are in this life, we are living as grihasthas, we have duties and responsibilities to fulfill, we must not get attached to this materialistic life. We must remember that our goal is not material advancement, our goal is spiritual advancement. And if we are able to constantly chant the holy name, to follow all the principles, then Mahaprabhu is promising that you will never lose my company. Isn't this amazing? Like, getting this promise from Mahaprabhu that you will never lose my company, I think it just gives us so much hope. all of us. So this is one instruction. Next slide, please. Then we have another very, very important pastime and story about Raghunath Das Goswami. I'm not going to, I want to ask how many of you know Raghunath Das Goswami, but that means all of you will want to unmute. So I'm just going to say that I'm sure all of you know Raghunath Das Goswami. He's one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. He's one of our acharyas who we follow. And his story is that he was born in a very, very rich family. He was the only son of his father. In fact, his uncle had no son. So he was, like the heir to a huge materialistic empire and a lot of opulence. However, Raghunath Das Goswami was never interested in this. All the time, he wanted to just leave all the he was looking for spiritual enlightenment. He wanted to be with Mahaprabhu and with Nityanand Prabhu. So there were many times that he tried to run away from home. And one such time when he ran away from home and he met Mahaprabhu, the instructions that he got from Mahaprabhu was, this is Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 16.237. Mahaprabhu said this to Raghunath Das Goswami. Sthirahana gareyau nahau vatula krame krame paya loka bhava sindhu kula. Be patient and return home. Don't be a crazy fellow. By and by you will be able to cross the ocean of material existence. And then the next verse, Markata vairagya na kara loka dekhana yatha yogya vishaya bhunja anashaktahana. You should not make yourself a show bottle devotee and become a false renunciant. For the time being, enjoy the material world in a befitting way and do not become attached to it. See, again here, the instruction that is being given to Raghunath Das Goswami and to all of us is that one does not need to change one's position in order to progress in spiritual life. What one needs to do is bring Krishna in the center. Don't try to force yourself to be in a position which you're not prepared for right now. And that is why Mahaprabhu is using the term Markata Vairagya. Don't be a show bottle devotee. Don't become a false renunciate. There is no need to do all of these things, right? But however, you be in the material world, fulfill your responsibilities, do not become attached to it. Again and again, the same instruction is being repeated. Don't become attached to it. So from these pastimes, the first lesson or the first guideline that we all get as grihastha is that one can make spiritual advancement as a grihastha. One does not need to leave home in order to perform devotional service or to progress spiritually. We all have the opportunity to be in our position and yet progress spiritually. So this is the first instruction for all of us as grihasthas. Next slide, please, Jyoti Mataji. Thank you. So the next point. What are the duties and responsibilities of a grihastha? Every varna, every ashram has got its own duties. Yes, we have the eternal duty, the dharma which is eternally there for us, which is obviously to chant the holy name of the Lord and to preach the holy name. But as grihasthas, or as brahmacharis, as sannyasis, as vanaprasthas, as brahmanas, as kshatriyas, we also have our jaivi dharma. What is it that we need to do? So here, Very beautiful pastime from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Mahaprabhu was in Jagannath Puri, he spent the last years of his Leela in Jagannath Puri. And at that time, devotees from Navadvip used to travel to Jagannath Puri every year for the Rath Yatra. And this is specifically a conversation between devotees from Kulinagram and Mahaprabhu. After the Rath Yatra, when the devotees were coming back home, this question was asked. This question was asked repeatedly 3 consecutive years. And Mahaprabhu's reply was, as you can see, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 16.69. I will just read the translation, bearing in mind the time factor. The translation says, as in the previous year, one of the inhabitants of Kulinagram submitted a petition to the Lord saying, "My Lord, kindly tell me what my duty is and how I should execute it." And the answer given by Mahaprabhu was, "You should engage yourself in the service of the servants of Krishna and always chant the holy name of Krishna. If you do these 2 things, you will very soon attain shelter at Krishna's lotus feet." So here clearly the duties and responsibilities of a grihastha is being given to us. These devotees from Kulinagram were grihasthas. Every year they ask the same question, what is my duty? And every year Mahaprabhu, in certain, slightly changing things, gave the same answer, that one must serve the Vaishnavas and chant the holy name. And in the purport to this verse, to one of the verses, Srila Prabhupada explains, this is purport to CC Madhya 3.41. He's saying this is the ideal householder's life. CC Madhya 3.41 actually discusses the pastime where Advaita Acharya has invited Mahaprabhu to his house to have prasad, to honor prasad. And at that time, it is describing how Advaita Acharya's wife has, cooked wonderful prasad for Mahaprabhu. And Prabhupada explains that this is the ideal householder's life. The husband and wife live together. The husband works very hard to secure paraphernalia for worshipping Lord Vishnu. The wife at home cooks a variety of foods for Lord Vishnu, and the husband offers it to the deity. After that, Aarti is performed and the prasadam is distributed amongst family members and guests. According to Vedic principles, there must always be a guest in a householder's house. Interesting. There must always be a guest in a householder's house. Unfortunately, this thing is still prevalent in India. I've seen, guests do come unannounced and they're always welcome. I'm not sure in Western countries this occurs as much anymore, which is very unfortunate. But Prabhupada speaks about his own childhood, and he says how his father, was not a very, very rich man. However, every day they would have 4 to 5 guests in their house without fail. And, how they would serve these guests. This is our culture. This is the Vedic culture, that a grihastha should actually, when just before he is going to partake prasad, he stands outside his door and he calls out loudly, "Is there anybody who is hungry? Please come and have prasad." And he calls out 3 times before he actually, if there's nobody, then he goes in and he takes prasad. So this culture of sharing, of taking on this responsibility of looking after, because bear in mind that it is the grihasthas, the grihastha ashram, who is allowed to go out and make money, to work. And so with it comes the responsibility of looking after the other ashrams. The brahmacharis, the sannyasis are not meant to have money, because they don't go out to earn. They are meant to distribute spiritual knowledge. So it is the responsibility of the grihastha to look after this ashram, these ashrams. Next slide, please, Jyoti Mataji. So again, an example from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is the story of Shivananda Sen. He was an ideal householder who was constantly using all his resources for serving the devotees. We just spoke about how the devotees from Navadvip would visit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri and would also go to see the Rath Yatra. The responsibility of taking all of these devotees fell on the shoulders of Shivananda Sen. He would be looking after all of these devotees. It says somewhere, I was reading, it says there used to be somewhere around 200 devotees is what I read. I could be wrong, but I think I read that. And in those days, bear in mind, there weren't, cars and trains and aeroplanes. So all of this journey was covered on foot. And when you crossed from one state to another, you had to pay taxes. The journey took so many days. It wasn't like, you just started today and you've reached. It took days. Shivananda Sen took it upon himself to not only the monetary, the financial things like paying taxes, but he also took the responsibility of seeing to it that ideal living arrangements were made for all the devotees, that there was enough prasadam for everybody. And this particular pastime is very interesting. One time, Shivananda Sen always did this. He allowed all the devotees to go through and he would always be the last because he had to pay the toll. So one time, this paying the taxes took slightly longer. And the arrangements for the living quarters for all the devotees had not been made. And at that time, Nityanand Prabhu was traveling with him. And Nityanand Prabhu, he's an avdut. He's in the mood of a cowherd boy sometimes. Because the arrangements were not made, for his quarters and for his food, Nityanand Prabhu was very angry and he said, I'm going to curse your 3 sons. Shivananda Sen had 3 sons. He said, I'm going to curse your sons. And, Shivananda Sen's wife started crying. And when Shivananda Sen finally came there and he saw his wife crying and she said, Nityanand Prabhu has cursed us. But Shivananda Sen was such a surrendered devotee. He said, why are you crying about this? This is the Lord's mercy. And then when he went to the Lord to seek forgiveness, to beg forgiveness that there has been a delay, the Lord kicked him. He said, I am so hungry. You've not arranged any prasad for him. And he kicked him. And at that time, Shivananda Sen said, today I have got the mercy of you, my Lord. Demigods are waiting for the dust of your lotus feet to fall on their head. And you have given me this blessing that you have put your feet on my chest. I am indeed very blessed today. So the point that we're trying to make here is that Shivananda Sen, as an ideal householder, took it upon himself to use all the resources that he had for serving the devotees year on year, every time. That was all that he did. And that is what we need to learn. As grihasthas, it is our responsibility, it is our duty to do this. The next thing, it is our duty to create an environment within our ashram that is conducive for Krishna consciousness, so that every member of the family is given an opportunity to progress in his spiritual life. As grihasthas, we understand that the goal of life is spiritual realization. So we also understand that it is my duty to see to it that my husband, my wife, my children, my parents, everybody has this right atmosphere so that they also can progress. Obviously, then their own journey, but at least this is my duty to try and create that kind of atmosphere. And then, of course, giving in charity. We've discussed that already, how it is that it is the grihastha's duty to look after the other ashrams, because the grihastha has the opportunity to work and to make money. Next slide, Jyoti Mataji. Thank you so much. We just discussed this, and I've put this already in the previous verse. Spoke about Srila Prabhupada, how he said that his father would receive guests, you know. So I put this verse from the CC so that we can refer to it whenever we need to. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we've discussed how staying in the grihastha ashram, one can make spiritual progress. One does not need to change the ashram. Next is we've discussed the duties and responsibilities of a grihastha. The third point that we're discussing now is how we have to always have faith in the Lord. He is most merciful and He will always help us. In the discharge of our duties, material and spiritual duties, there are problems. We do encounter hurdles. And it is natural that sometimes we tend to lose hope. We think that this is so difficult. How am I going to manage this? How am I going to chant my 16 rounds, go to work, look after my family, cook food, and do the laundry? And sometimes we get overwhelmed. But we must always have faith that the Lord is most merciful. And again, from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this verse gives us hope. Lord Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has freely given this love of Krishna everywhere and anywhere, even to the most fallen such as Jagai and Madai. What then to speak of those who are already pious and elevated? So, this pastime, I understand, was discussed yesterday by Mukundhari Prabhu as well, pastime of Jagai and Madai. Of course, it was in a different context. It was about compassion. But the point is, we've discussed this pastime many times. But here, what we can see from this verse is that Mahaprabhu is giving this love of Krishna even to the most fallen like Jagai and Madai. So we all have hope. Yes, agreed. I speak for myself. I may be even more fallen than Jagai and Madai, but I have faith. I have faith that the Lord is most merciful. The Lord is most compassionate. So even if we have hurdles, we have problems, sometimes we give up hope, sometimes we feel nothing is working, turn to this verse. Turn to this verse and see that Krishna, Mahaprabhu, is there. Right. The next point. So this is the fourth point. We're going through these, different guidelines. So fourth point. And the fourth point is how a grihastha should always be humble. Mahaprabhu has given us this verse, Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishrana amanina manadina kirtaniya sada hari. How humility is the most important trait, character of a grihastha. Actually, for everybody. For everybody. Mahaprabhu has given this instruction to all varnas, to all ashrams, that we must be extremely humble. Next slide, please, Jyoti Mataji. Here, Mahaprabhu is saying, raising my hands, I declare, everyone please hear me. String this verse on the thread of the holy name and wear it on your neck for continuous remembrance. I'll just recite this verse in Bengali because it's so beautiful. It says, Urdhava bahu kari kaho suna sarva loka nama sutre ganti para gante ei shloka. Wow. So this verse, Trinadapi Sunichena, Mahaprabhu is saying that one must string this verse on the thread of the holy name and wear it. See, the whole point of wearing it on your neck is that you constantly remember this verse, constantly remember that I am nothing, I am insignificant, But I'm insignificant. I'm not thinking that, I'm whatever, I'm a nobody. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is that without the grace and the mercy of the Lord, There is nothing that I can do. That is humility. Realizing that whatever it is, whatever I have, whatever I do, whatever I speak, the intelligence that I have, the activities that I perform, is only because of the mercy. It's only that. Today, if for a moment, if Krishna takes away my memory, I will not be able to say anything. I may know loads of things, but I will not be able to speak. So realizing that is humility. And from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we have this beautiful story of Vasudeva Vipra. Again, a lot of you may have heard this story about, sorry, can we go back to the next slide, please, Jyoti Mataji? Previous slide, yeah, thank you. So this is the story of Vasudeva Vipra. A lot of you must have heard this story, so I will be very, very brief. Vasudeva Vipra was an exalted devotee of Mahaprabhu. He was suffering with leprosy. And in his wounds, it was so bad that there were worms that were staying on his body in the wounds. But he was such a compassionate devotee that if one worm fell out of his body, he picked up that worm and put it back on, thinking, how will this worm survive? Right now, it is surviving because it is eating, my flesh. So this Vasudeva Vipra, when he heard that when Mahaprabhu was traveling, he heard that Mahaprabhu was here. He tried to go and see him, and he heard that Mahaprabhu has left already. And he fell down unconscious because he was so sad and upset that he did not get the opportunity to see Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu is in all our hearts. When he knew this, he came back. He came back to the place where Vasudeva Vipra was, and he embraced him. As soon as he embraced him, all these wounds of Vasudeva Vipra were cured completely. And his face was shining. His body was completely cured. And obviously, he was very, very grateful and happy. But at the same time, look at this humility. So please hear this very carefully. At the same time, he prayed to Mahaprabhu that because of this mercy that I have got from you, I hope I don't become proud. Because everybody will say that Vasudeva Vipra has been cured because of the embrace of Mahaprabhu. So he was praying that I don't become proud. And at that time, Mahaprabhu said to him, if you constantly chant the holy name of the Lord, you will never become proud. But this is the humility of Vasudeva Vipra, that he was willing to he was happy to suffer from leprosy rather than becoming proud. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then this is very, very, very nice pastime instruction again. As we all can see, this is Nanda Maharaj. He is welcoming Garga Muni. When Garga Muni comes to name Krishna and Balram, the naming ceremony. At that time, Nanda Maharaj is praying to Garga Muni. And the words that he uses to welcome and the words that he uses to honor Garga Muni is, he says, persons like you move from one place to another, not for their own interest, but for the sake of poor-hearted grihasthas. Otherwise, they have no other interest in growing from one place to another. There are other many statements that he speaks where he honors Garga Muni. But he is completely humbling himself, saying that I am such an insignificant fool. I know nothing. You are realized. You have the love of Krishna in your heart, and you are only going from one place to another to Grihastha's house to give us this knowledge, to give us this love of God. So Nanda Maharaj is actually showing us that our only hope of spiritual advancement is to offer respects to these devotees, to such devotees who carry the love of God in their heart and who are willing to share this love. But if, as grihasthas, we are willing to be humble and to beg for this mercy in all humility. So we are learning this from these exalted devotees. Next slide, please, Jyoti. Next slide. Thank you. Oh,
No, Mataji, is this
or
the
are we okay?
one? Yeah.
Is this the end? Okay,
Yeah.
brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. I thought because I timed it, it's 40. So yes. So we'll just can we stop sharing, Jyoti Mataji? It's fine. So we'll just go through the guidelines, what we saw today. The first thing we saw that even as grihasthas, one can make spiritual advancement if we understand the term ashram, ashram meaning connecting to the Lord, surrendering to Krishna. We don't become grihamedis. We don't need to change our position. Being grihasthas also, we can make spiritual advancement. The second point we discussed was the duties and responsibilities. As grihasthas, it is our responsibilities to look after other ashrams, to give in charity, to create an atmosphere which is conducive for Krishna consciousness, to see to it that all our family members advance in Krishna consciousness. We've discussed charity. It is our responsibility to give in charity. The other point was how one must be humble. If there is no humility, then we will not get the grace and the mercy of the devotees of the Lord who are representatives, who are carrying the love of Krishna. So these were the Grihastha guidelines. This is not an exhaustive list. We can go on and on and on. I mean, this is such a wonderful topic that we can literally discuss this for days. But obviously, I've tried to just do whatever I could. I'm sure I haven't done justice, but I hope somewhere it has helped you all. If there are any comments or questions, please do feel free to unmute yourselves.
Hare Krishna, dear Madhu Kumari. Such
Hare
a
Krishna
such a
Mataji.
such a wonderful presentation you have. Also, my realization is that when Lord comes, He brings all His associate with them, with whoever comes, Krishna or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so that He can set up the perfect example for us to follow. All these devotees
Yes.
have just pointed out, and how he sort of giving them the lessons for how we need to live in the Grhasta life. They were the perfect example. And that's why through
Yes.
them, he's teaching us all the knowledge in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Is such a wonderful, wonderful literature. It's just beyond our imagination. How Srila Prabhupada really wanted to give us this set of Chaitanya, how much like Vrindavan was explaining, how Srila Prabhupada really wanted us to read this Chaitanya Charitamrita, and how much he was trying to finish it off before. So that's why this whole the session you have given us, it's all based on Chaitanya Charitamrita, and that is what you said. You don't need to go anywhere. We can stay in our grihastha life and do for our spiritual development. We can do the talk. We don't need to change our
Yes.
either go to sannyas, becomes in. We can be perfect devotee being in the grihastha ashram. So that's why it's so important to understand this knowledge of Chaitanya Charitamrita, how he has given, and the way you have explained
Yes.
it. Really, really wonderful. Thank you so much for your lesson. I'm really, really proud of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was in anxiety, to be honest, because obviously, as some of you know, I am in India. There is a time difference. I was worried about the connectivity, but Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu said, he invited me to speak on this topic, and I said I'm going to try my best. So I've just tried to do my service.
Done very well. Thank you, Madhu Kumari.
And it works out beautifully, connection issues. With the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes, it is all. I am in Jagannath Puri, so when I was taking darshan, I was praying to Mahaprabhu, to Lord Jagannath, that please help me. we're just instruments anyways.
We really appreciate it, Madhu Kumari. Because I think it must be about 2 in the morning for you there. What time is it?
It's yes, it is actually 2:15.
So you made a big sacrifice to give us the association and share your knowledge. So
No, that's all right. That's all right.
much gratitude to you. And if there's any other devotees who would like
That's all
to share their reflections or comments,
Yeah.
feel free to do so.
Any other questions or comments or reflections? Actually, it would be great.
Dandavats Mataji. I'm
Hare
Sandeep.
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
What a humbling experience to attend this class today. And also, Mataji, just wanted to know one thing that we can take away from your Jagannath Puri visit. One experience that you would like to share, just because it's so different. The joy on your face, which clearly tells us.
I will share what it is. As you all know that Jagannath Puri, whenever we come here, I mean, I don't know how many of you have come here, but whenever I've come here, Jagannath Ji is so merciful that, a lot of devotees want to come. So the temple is always very crowded. And, it's very difficult to get darshan. It's really, really difficult. And this time when I was traveling here, I was praying because I've generally come during Kartik. So I know that Kartik is going to be crowded. So this time it is off peak. I was praying that, oh Lord, let me please have darshan of you, like, a little nicely, like. And you won't believe, I have had the most amazing darshan. I've had the chance to just stand there and look at them. And believe me when I say this, I have prayed for all of you. I had the chance. I could stand there. I could say prayers. I prayed for each and every one of you. Most of you, like who I know, who I interact with every day, I've literally taken names for all of them. Like, please bless so and so, please bless so and so, and like that, and then prayed for. So it was just a wonderful experience because I just could see them. I could just stand in front of them, just look at them. So I've been going for darshan twice every day, and it's just been amazing. That's why I think I'm so happy. Yeah. Okay, I don't know if Sandeep Prabhu is saying anything, but he's on mute. Anybody else? Any other comments about this? Sorry. Yes, Sandeep Prabhu.
Nothing, Mataji. Just wonderful. Just feeling your joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments or questions about this class? Any comments about, I'm sure you are in touch with Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu and the others for distributing Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Hare Krishna.
If no comments, then I guess. Yes,
Hare Krishna,
yes.
Mataji. We are so proud of
Hare
you.
Krishna.
You got the chance to see Lord Jagannath and you're praying for us. That's what such a wonderful devotee. We back on your lotus feet.
Thank you.
Please pray more and more for our Guru Maharaj and the people in Ukrainian and also devotees around the world suffering. And regardless of
Yes.
whatever disease, thank you so much, Mataji. Please, thank you so much. Thank you. Very nice class.
Thank you.
Haribo.
Thank you, Madhu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Very nice that you are there in the most beautiful place, wonderful place. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoy researching for this class, grihastha guidelines. It is when Prabhuji gave this topic to me, I thought it is amazing. I hadn't really thought of it from that point of view, but amazing when I was doing my research. It was wonderful to read all these instructions and to, you kind of start thinking about these things and then you want to apply these instructions. So yeah, it was wonderful.
True, and Mahaprabhu
I
is
hope you all can.
Mahaprabhu is there,
Sorry.
so he is guiding you totally.
Yes. I hope we all can distribute more and more Chaitanya Charitamrita sets because, reading Chaitanya Charitamrita is very beautiful. Reading the pastimes of Mahaprabhu, as you can see, and the verses written in the Bengali language, and when they are recited, they just sound very sweet. So I encourage all of you to please distribute as many sets as you can. It will be lovely. It will be a great service. Thank you all for attending, and thank you all for giving me this opportunity. Please forgive my mistakes. I hope that this session has helped me. Vanchakalpatrubhascha kripa sindhubhaiva cha patitanam
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo
Vaishnavebhyo namo
Namaha.
namaha.
Thank you, Mataji. Very nice class.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. Thank you. Thank you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you for the class.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.